Having watched the 1973 original of the Crazies for the first time recently, and the 2010 remake shortly after, we thought we'd do a little compare and contrast. Starting with George A. Romero's 1973 original, I'll run through some details that stood out. The good. Detail 1. The movie dives into the action immediately, before we know who's who and what's what. A man is burning his house and his family to the ground. A strong start. Even if the colour of the blood did look like paint you'd pick for your bathroom wall if you were feeling like something a little different. If that's the colour of blood, I'm Rosemary's Baby. Detail 2. It's an awesome premise, and the portrayal of the crazy element and the impact on the victims is really cool. The vacant expressions, the unhealthy behaviour, the casual attitude to murder, putting it somewhat lightly. Characters are affected by the infection, virus, plague, in different ways, and that's how it should be. A nice touch. There's a bizarre informing the president of the disaster sequence where it cuts between the group informing the president, who is randomly sat with his back to them via video screen, and what looks like archive footage of unknown events. It's a little odd and a little jarring. To be honest, I'd love to know the thinking behind it as well. At a guess, I'd say it went something like, informing the president makes the incident more dramatic, but we can't afford the White House, let's brainstorm. Moving on, I couldn't help but laugh at the constant smoking in the doctor's surgery where they were doing testing and initially holding patients. My fellow member of the corridor team quite aptly pointed out, it's the 70s, when I expressed my incredulity. If we're talking deaths, the death by knitting needle moment was hilarious and superbly topped by the culprit's erratic behaviour afterwards. Must finish scarf. Alongside that, we had death by pitchfork. How many ways can you kill people in one movie? Missing only death by cheese grater, death by camping peg, and death by Eccles cake. With a decent death, you want decent dialogue. A crap script can just kill a movie. We all know it. I'm looking at you, Sharknado. The dialogue in this instance was, fortunately, amusing for the most part, particularly that delivered by Dr. Watts, casually proposing marriage to a colleague mid-science experiment, at one point describing another colleague as appropriately vague. He was by far my favourite character. May he rest in peace. I'll end the good on what some may consider a non-compliment. There are several scenes where we see military leaders and other authority figures discussing a solution to their predicament, and it feels entirely like a sitcom. Now, I don't think that's intended, but it was very quirky. I liked it. Think Yes Minister with a drop of The West Wing and a dash of The Naked Gun. Okay, not entirely sitcom, but who doesn't want to see a Naked Gun TV series? It's a no-brainer. Now on to the iffy. I know I said diving into the action was good, but it also means no context. Who cares if this man is burning his house down? Granted, his kids are inside and he's murdered his wife, but who is he? Where is he? Yes, it's dramatic, but it didn't pack the punch it intended. Perhaps watching the remake first didn't help, who knows? Now, I make no apology for utterly contradicting myself here, but there was way too much focus and screen time on the military. The decision makers, who cares? Give me gore and suspense over men in suits smoking and talking any day. Sorry. That was me demonstrating the parade-style drumming that featured on and off throughout the entire movie. Out of place, annoying, and it really didn't scream horror. I get the use of it once or twice to illustrate a military operation, but really give us something else. Apart from Cher. Don't give us that. And so we come to the shouting. What's with everyone shouting their lines? Let's put it down to a stressful work environment, shall we, and move on. To the banjo scene. Every movie should have at least one banjo-based chase scene, surely. Towards the start of the movie, some of the characters are evading the authorities to the banjo. Honestly, the whole score felt like an episode of Magnum PI or Cagney and Lacey. In fact, I suspect somewhat limited by budget, the overall audio in the action sequences was very out of sync with the visuals, like it was recorded in a giant echoey hall. Again, low budget. And lastly, most importantly of all, it lacked any real suspense. Kind of a biggie. Fast forward to 2010 and we're given a remake. Courtesy of Breck Eisner, Timothy Oliphant and Radha Mitchell, with George A. Romero on executive producer duties. The good, that biggie again. Tons of suspense. Pretty much from start to finish. It's not a relaxing movie. You'll definitely need a back massage and a hot chocolate afterwards. This is a scary, tense movie. There's a scene in the makeshift quarantine zone that is just horrible and packed with peril. Again, with the strong dialogue, when Timothy Oliphant's Sheriff David declares, "We might be in trouble here," the line delivery is perfect and it accurately sums up and understates their situation completely. As a fitting homage to the original, the remake retains some cool details. And there's something very grim about using a school as a base for housing crazed individuals. The build-up to all-out chaos is executed very well. It starts small with pockets of violence, builds, and then spectacularly hits the fan. Some of the smaller details that are missing from the original really add to the sense of foreboding. Case in point, the family man who burns his family alive. Taken to the doctor's surgery during the day due to his behaviour, assessed, and sent home pending additional tests. A slight case of misdiagnosis, but it makes the dispatch of the family that little bit worse. As with the 1973 original, the casting is brilliant. No one walks down an empty street quite like Timothy Oliphant and his unique gait. Radha Mitchell is flawless, and Joe Anderson plays the deputy's slow descent into madness very well. It's a very stressful drip feed of a decline. The individual instances of horror are very effective. The funeral parlour, the jail cell, the sheriff's house, the baseball ground, that forking quarantine zone. The truck stop at the end. Whilst the quarantine zone is certainly the tensest, it's the baseball scene that really floats the idea that something isn't quite right. The audience gets glimpses of the military perspective from a couple of soldier encounters, but the plot isn't bogged down by overuse of the military. Both encounters serve to progress the plot without taking away from the focus of the movie, the characters, their survival. Addressing that open-ended ending, it's okay. For a moment, you're given some hope. But who wants hope in a horror movie? Hope is for romantic comedy, surely. The iffy is actually at a minimum for the remake, not something you can say about remakes very often, so enjoy it. Our only real gripe was with Daniela Panabaker's character. Absolutely nothing against the actress, she was great in Justified, but her character seemed a little pointless and didn't really add anything to the movie. Her death was memorable, but that doesn't really feel like a valid reason to add a whole extra character to a movie. So in summary, these movies feel like the same premise but completely different genres. I think it depends on your interpretation of horror. The original definitely has horror elements, but feels more like a science fiction movie. The remake leans heavily into the horror and not much else. It has an imaginative plot, and the original is a great movie for the shoestring budget it was given. The remake was underrated, and it's a real shame it wasn't given more love at the box office. The horror genre has seen a major boost in the 21st century, and I think perhaps the 2010 movie was a product of a swamped market and a resistance to remakes. Anyway, enough of the momentary lapse into sincere film critique. I gave it a good go. We'd be very interested to hear how the original was received by horror fans upon its release in the 1970s. Let us know your thoughts on the Crazies. Do you prefer the original or the remake? Are they both pants and you want us to cover The Wicker Man, in which case stay tuned. Have fun storming the castle.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes! My eyes! Ah! Ah!
Thanks very much for listening. If you'd like to contact us or check out what we've been up to, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you enjoyed the video today, please do like it, subscribe to the channel, and ding the bell to receive notifications about new videos. See you in the next one.